Right here. So we are going to do the assignment discussion for this unit today, and I'm going to show you how we are going to be looking at, doing the assignment. So let me just bring up the unit specification, and we'll start off with this. Okay, so let me share my screen. Right, so you should be able to see my full screen now. And what I'm going to do is just minimize some of the other windows that we are not going to use. We've got the assignment unit specification here, and I've got the assignment brief here. And then we look at the assignment discussion session presentation. Okay, done. Now, so I hope everybody can see my screen, and you are also able to hear me with regards to the discussion that we're going to have. So what I would do is mute everyone so that there is no background noise. And if you have any questions at any given point in time that you want to ask me, feel free to ask me so that we will discuss and make sure that you are able to actually complete the assignment going forward. So unmute your microphones when you're looking at asking questions, because that will allow you to discuss any queries or any doubts that we have. I'm also going to record this session, and this session is also being broadcasted live. So at any given stage, if I just bring it up on the screen, just to show you, you would be able to go to the YouTube channel of UK Versity, and this session is currently live. So after the session is over, if you want to listen into the recording and see the discussion, as you can see, it'll say academic and research skills assignment discussion session. Now, keeping in mind some of you who are looking at doing this for the first time, and what I would do is I normally discuss this in a comprehensive way. And the reason why I do that is primarily to ensure that you have very good idea and you're confident after studying this unit with me and some part of it with Shazia, that you are able to complete the assignment and achieve the grade that you're looking at achieving. Now, the first thing in the assignment when we start, we want to look at two things. First and foremost, you should have what is called the unit specification with you. And this is the unit specification. I normally refer it to as US because it is unit specification. This will give us all the tasks that we've discussed in all the learning outcomes which have been done by me and Shazia. So obviously you have everything available and you know what assessment criteria you are going to be hitting. The second sheet or the document that should have is called the assignment brief. Now, AB, this is a document which I say is AB. Now, the reason I say this is because all the assessment criteria that you see here in terms of, which are given here essentially, they are all converted into what are called tasks and activities in the assignment brief. The wordings of it actually remain exactly the same. There is no change in the wording. But what the assignment brief does is gives you a bit of a scenario or a context or a background, whichever way you put it. And that context and a background allows you to understand that how am I going to do these tasks and activities. So it gives you an understanding that I'm going to do this and this is what I'm going to assume. And with the assumption or with this particular role in mind, I am now going to do the tasks which have been given out by the awarding body for completing the assignment. Now, depending on the number of learning outcomes in this unit, as you can see, there are 6 learning outcomes. So what we have done is we have covered these in 6 sessions. And if you look at sessions like learning outcome 2, learning outcome 4, and if I put this way, learning outcome 5, these sessions have been done with Shazia, because you were looking at understanding research and specifically how research and why research is done specifically within the health and social care sector. Now, apart from this, the other 3 sessions that you have done have been primarily, or the other sessions that we have done is basically to look at covering the academic part of the unit. And those have been with me, which is learning outcome 1, assessment of your English, your current strengths and weaknesses, your English proficiency. And when we look at strengths and weaknesses, we were looking at rounding it around your academic skills, your writing skills, and your Harvard referencing skills. Learning outcome 3, which is note taking, and the last, which is reflection on your SWOT analysis and the SMART targets that you've done, is primarily going to be the learning outcome 6 that you will essentially cover with me. Now, this unit is a practical unit, because you would see it says be able to. That means be able to. That means you're not theoretically going to study this. It is, most of the learning outcomes are, as you can see, be able to. That means you have to do them. You have to practically implement them and show the application of that in your assignment. Only learning outcome 2 is know about research. That means here you have to cover the main research methods that we have discussed in terms of how research activities is done, how research is carried out, things like primary research, secondary research, tertiary research, and this is more or less theoretical. But apart from that, all the other tasks and activities that you're going to see in the unit that you do in the assignment are going to ask you to do it. That means ask you to practically show how you're going to do the assessment of your strengths and weaknesses, how do you set targets, how do you create your professional development plan, then review the personal development plan, and these bits have to be done as documents which are going to be personalized to yourself. That means they're going to be reflecting or providing progress about your individual cases. Now, the unit specification is important because for us, it gives us a clear idea in terms of what all needs to be covered when we look at the contents of the task. So if I say, it says throughout your course, you are encouraged to reflect on your learning, set your own targets, and monitor your progress towards. Now, we can't do generically any monitoring of progress. So they have given us some idea that you have to look at academic skills, things like research, note-taking, summarizing, paraphrasing, and your English language skills. Now, last session that we did, I basically requested everyone to look at taking a British Council English test. And that test was essentially required because that will be used as a screenshot. You will use it to produce and provide an evidence that this is my English language, proficiency, or this is my, proficiency on, or my level of English. And that would be a good way of actually presenting it in terms of coverage for the assignment. The second part was I had discussed with you SMART templates. So basically I'd shared a template which was looking at when you identify your strengths and weaknesses. Now what you have to do is put activities down to improve those weaknesses or threats that you face, or you feel those are opportunities that you need to work on and develop your skills. Then we looked at a SMART template, and I'll show you all these in a second. And that was primarily to fill those templates up. And that would mean that when we set targets for ourselves, they have to be specific, measurable, realistic, achievable and timed. And that is where you are going to look at filling that template up with the weaknesses and translating your weaknesses into activities. That means how will I remove, say, my weakness on paraphrasing, or how would I go about improving my Harvard referencing skill, or how would I improve about my researching skills. So you have to put activities down. These activities could be that I would look at reading a book on research methods, and I would read chapters like introduction, research methodology, literature review, and that is an activity that you're taking. And then you put down a timeline to say, okay, this activity that I'm going to do, read this book, or maybe a couple of pages or chapters in the book, research methods. I'm going to do this in a span of, say, a month's time. And that would be giving or taking a target which is going to be realistic. It is achievable. You are measuring it, and then it is timed because you're putting a time aside for it for about a month, and that would help build understanding. You might also say that I will be looking at some YouTube videos to understand what are research methods, what are primary research methods, things like collecting data using questionnaires, surveys, focus interviews, group discussions, and that would be also an activity that you're doing. Now, you might put a timeline of 3 days or 2 hours on it, and because you're looking at a couple of videos of duration like 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, all that is combined, and it gives a clear sense of idea that you are going to be able to develop knowledge by looking at watching these YouTube videos, and that would increase your knowledge about the subject area, which is primary research methods. So typically speaking, the unit content here gives us very good idea in terms of what is required to be covered as evidence in the assignment brief. So when you're looking at the unit specification and you're looking at what is being asked for in the indicative content, main advantage of that would be that you are not going to veer away from providing evidence which is not required. Your evidence is going to be relevant. It is going to be directly related to the task which has been set in the assignment, and you would not write too much or compile the evidence in a way wherein it is just the right amount and the right words and having the right content, so that when you submit the assignment, you are also clear that my task is meeting the criteria. I am able to achieve and complete the assignment in the first go. So you're not kind of firing in the dark or beating around the bush. You know exactly what is to be written in the assignment, and that is why it is important to also refer sometimes to the indicative content which is given in the unit specification. Now, we in any case look at this content, and what we do is we give you guidance, and all our presentations, everything in terms of teaching and learning material is basically covering the indicative content which has been given here in the unit specification. Now, having said that, this is only a guidance from my side, because at the end of the day, if I read a task, it says do your assessment of strengths and weaknesses. Now, if I look at the first task here, it says assess your academic strengths and weaknesses, including English language skills. That is exactly what is written here. Now, what does it mean and what do I need to do? Say, for example, if you need some tips, then what I do is I scroll down to the content, indicative content which is given, and as you can see, it says academic competencies. We are going to look at reading, writing, speaking, and listening and reasoning. So how do I assess this? I open the website which I had mentioned to you. I go to the British Council, English score website, English test score website. And if I do this quick search, I had included the link in the presentation. I look at taking this test by downloading this app on the phone. And I had given you an example that when you finish your test, you will get an option to look at a screenshot, or you would look at an option of essentially, I didn't realize that somebody's waiting. So that's great. So in this case, what we would do then is basically look at adding it. And I'll show you one example of a test which the learner has sent across. And that would be, a screenshot like this, as you can see. And this learner's test result essentially clearly shows that the learner has, evaluated his English score in this case. If I just maybe drop this onto the screen and open it. So as you can see, this particular, he's also downloaded his certificate, which has been available as a PDF, because you need to pay for it, about £19.99. But if you don't need to pay for the certificate, you can actually take a screenshot of this, and that clearly assesses your English language ability and your skills which are required to be completed, in this particular task. So as you can see, what I've done is I've assessed my English language skills. And this English language skills, if I look at the second page of this screenshot, it'll tell me what is my reading, writing, speaking, and listening level in terms of proficiency. And I would highly encourage, if I show you the certificate in a second for a learner, I would highly encourage that what you should look at is, you should be looking at downloading, this particular certificate by paying, and because obviously some of you who are looking at taking admission into universities later, and sometimes if universities ask for your English proficiency test, then you could provide a copy of this certificate, because this certificate is valid for a period of 2 years and essentially is going to be useful as far as the the test score is concerned, and obviously the assignment is also concerned. But either ways, you could look at either a screenshot, or essentially you could look at downloading it from a point of view of as a screenshot or as a PDF certificate. So if you see, this particular learner has downloaded the PDF certificate. His proficiency level comes across at C1, which is the advanced level of equivalent to IELTS 8. And it, as you can see, also judges your reading, writing, speaking, and listening. 4 areas that we would need to address essentially as far as the English proficiency skills are concerned for your assignment evidence. So from my point of view, I would suggest, again, going back very briefly, how to take the test. Go into this particular site, and I will put this in the chat route for everyone. When you take this particular test, so if I just share my screen again, and go into the browser. So take this test. This is the shortcut which I've sent on the text message right now as chat. You can take this test, download it on your phone. It is a camera-based test. If you move away from the camera, or your face turns left or right, or you're too far away from your phone or a tablet or even your PC, then obviously the test stops. It takes about half an hour to complete the test, and it will test your language on 4 fronts: speaking, listening, writing, and reading. And it has about, I think, 30 odd multiple questions. So maybe a minute per question is what is normally required to complete this. And this would essentially allow you to, I would say, assess your English language ability. Now, I would, for this particular unit, because most of the content is be able to, I have shared a lot of templates which you can. Give me 1 second. I have shared a lot of templates that you would be able to do and use to be able to fill that in and customize it to your requirement, and that would allow you to also thereby complete the assignment task by task, and these would then be combined into a full one document, and they will become the part of your assessment for this particular unit. Yes, go ahead. What any questions? Yes, go ahead.
Okay, sir. Even if we just have the level 2 functional skill in English, so I still have to do this one?
No, you don't need to do it. If you have your functional skills English test certificate, that would be sufficient. You don't need to do this test. But because I would suggest that it is asking, so let me rephrase the answer to your query. For those of you who have already achieved a functional skills or an equivalent test at level 2 or an IELTS, and if you have that as a result, that is great, because obviously that proves that you have good English language skills. But because we are looking at compiling evidence for this particular assignment, I would still encourage you to go in and take this English test and just take a screenshot at the end of it of your score, because this will essentially help you assess your language abilities and your skills at today's, at a point in time today. I would not say you must have done your functional skills maybe a couple of weeks back or maybe a couple of months back, but it'll be good from a point of view of evidence for this particular assignment, and specifically, the task 1.1. You are required to do this. So my suggestion is take that test, take a screenshot of it, and then attach it as an evidence, insert it in your Word document, and that would be good for your assignment.
Okay, sir.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, sir.
Good stuff. Now, what I will do is, in order to get into the discussion for this particular assignment, what I've done is, at my end, I've converted the assignment brief, which you see here. I have converted this into what is called a presentation. So essentially, from my point of view, what I'm going to do now is show you the presentation, and we are going to discuss this particular assignment in detail and then understand how to go about compiling the evidence so that you are able to pass this particular unit. And just to also point out that this particular unit, a lot of you who are on the session today are doing it in a sense that this is you are on a course wherein there are 4 units. For some of you who have actually joined the course, which is the newer version of this course, as I've explained last time, the academic and research skills has been broken out into 2 units: research skills for healthcare and personal and professional development. So both of the learning outcomes have been split into 2 units. So when you do your assignments for the ones who are doing a 6-unit course, like in this case, Julia, you have joined, you would be doing 2 separate assignments. And I think I've done this discussion on research skills with some of the learners on that course already. But no harm in this sitting on this particular session and revising it again, because it's just a case wherein what ATHE has done is divided this unit into 2 parts. So if I just briefly show this for the purposes of students who are joined now and maybe are looking at the new version of the course. So just to show very briefly what is the difference, but actually it is just the units being broken down into 2. There is not much of a difference as far as the unit structure and the learning outcomes are concerned. So if you see, what they have done is they have broken this unit down, which is what we see as academic and research skills, 15 credit, into 2 units in the new version of the course. So what the research in healthcare has become learning outcomes 1, 3. So learning outcome 1, 3, and 6. Sorry, in the research skills, it is learning outcome 2, learning outcome 4, and 5. So basically, understand the role of research, identify research topic, and complete a research project in your area, in your desired topic or an area. So they have broken this down into 3 learning outcomes, as you can see. And what they've done with the academic component of the unit is basically taken out learning outcome 1, learning outcome 3, and learning outcome 6. And that has been put into this particular unit. So understand, your opportunities, do a reflective practice. It means reflect on your personal development plan and outline how you're going to look at creating your plan with the SMART targets and, how you carry out the assessment of your skills, which is in learning outcome 1. And this unit, again, is a smaller credit unit, as you can see, 10. This one is, 8, and this is 10. And this was a 15 credit unit. They have reduced another 3 credits in another unit for person-centered approach, but the overall program, whichever one you're following, is still a 60 credit diploma. There is no difference that the new units are, giving you more credits. No, it is the same program, but they've just broken it down into 2 to keep the, confusion on this units. So in order to remove the confusion, let me put it this way. So what they've done is you have an academic side of the unit, and you have a research side of the unit. So what we will do is now switch over to the presentation. And when we do this particular assignment, what we are also looking at is making use of some of the templates that I have, mentioned. And those are the ones that we will be looking at, discussing from a point of view of completing it for the purposes of, the assignment submission. So let me just bring this back. And let me get my templates so that we will be able to start with discussion on them straight away. So just to show you, I think when I was explaining, maybe it was not showing the right screen. So as you can see, the academic skills unit, research skills unit in the new one, and the personal and professional development. So this is 10 credits, this is 8, making it 18. The unit that you are doing is 15 credits. It has 6 learning outcomes. Here it has 3 and 3. So 6 learning outcomes here as well. But learning outcome 1, so if I put it this way and show you quickly, learning outcome 1, and learning outcome 3 and learning outcomes 6 have gone into. So what has happened in this case, if you see, is when I look at the research side of the unit, this learning outcome has become here. When I look at drafting the piece of research, this is here. And then when I go into learning outcome 5, that primarily has become learning outcome 3 here. So this bit has become here. And this is the 3 learning outcomes in the research. Now, when I look at professional development, you'll be able to access your own academic skills, note-taking, and reflective practice have gone here. So we have looked at how to do your reflective practice, which is through using your personal development plan, then looking at your learning outcome 1, which is smart targets and carrying out your skills audit, and then note-taking part of it to understand career opportunities, along with how do you look at, making notes when you are essentially developing yourself, has become learning outcome 2. So effectively, they are the same units, no difference whatsoever in the content. And what we have done is, in terms of our coverage, we did 3 sessions on the academic side, which have been done with me, and then 3 sessions with Shazia to cover the research side of the skills. And that would allow you to address the assignment for this particular unit. Now, for the ones who are doing the newer version, obviously they will do 2 assignments because they are 2 different units. For the ones who are doing the academic and research skills, which is the old version of the course, are going to be looking at attempting 1 assignment, and that will cover both the parts. And there are 4 tasks in it, covering all the 6 learning outcomes for the assignment. So let's look at going into the assignment brief. And what I would then do is essentially share with you some of the templates that you are required to fill. And each of these templates that you fill in would essentially complete a task of your assignment. Now, very briefly, when you start your assignment, there are some tips that I want to give you. So I am going to show you how to look at, compiling this particular assignment, just to make sure that you are absolutely following what I'm, saying. And when you produce the outputs, the output of the assignments are going to be using some of the templates, which will become essentially the, the compiled evidence for this particular unit. So let's start with the first one, wherein we are looking at, and these are usual tips that I normally give out when you do your assignment. And these tend to be essentially looking at keeping an idea in terms of what is the word count or the word limit that you're going to be addressing when you write your assignment. Excuse me. And then when you're also looking at referencing, because some part of this assignment would essentially mean that you are paraphrasing and writing things in your own words. So in those cases, you're going to be looking at generating a list of bibliography. And ideally speaking, this particular assignment, if you're looking at achieving the highest grade, like distinction, should be about around 5,500 words. If you're looking at achieving a pass, then you're looking at about 4,500 words, because you're detailing on your research project and some of the assignment tasks which have assess, examine, clarify, or analyze, or compare or critically evaluate, would require you to put in some additional words. And that is where your suggested word limit of the assignment will go up, or will become more than what is required to be done in this case. Now, apart from this, when we do the assignment, because this particular part of the assignment requires you to carry out your SWOT analysis, there's a template, asks you to set up SMART targets, there's a template for it. You do your skills audit, which is also, there's a template for it. and then you make a PDP, there is also a template for it. So in some cases, what will happen is when you start doing the various tasks in the assignment brief, you're going to be using these templates, which are Word documents. And when you submit and compile it as a full evidence, this is going to have all these bits in that assignment, and they will be labeled according to the task. So when you have to do SWOT analysis, this is task 1.1. When you have to do your SMART targets, it's task 1.2. When you have to develop a PDP, this is 1M1. How do I say this? If I show you briefly, the unit specification again, because that is where that is important, because at some stage, when you start doing your assignment, you need to keep a track or an eye on what am I doing as far as grade that I'm trying to achieve. So if I just switch you and show you the full screen again, just to put this into perspective, what you will see is that when I assess my SWOT analysis, strengths and weakness, I am looking at task 1.1. When I set targets for improvement using SMART terminology, it's 1.2. When I develop the PDB plan, it is 1M1. So it is very important to identify that you are able to complete all these individual tasks and templates, because you are trying to hit a grade, and that would be either a merit or a distinction. And in those cases, you have to keep an eye on and label those parts clearly and effectively as far as the assignment brief is concerned. Now, in terms of the scenario which has been given, obviously you have been asked to do this assignment by following some of the tasks. And if I minimize this, if I look at this assignment here, this is the bit which basically is put up in the slide. So it talks about that you should be able to complete this assignment through the course. You may wish to use your personal development plan at the end of tasks 1 and 4, because in the first task, you create your PDP, and in the last task, it is asking you to review your PDP. That means you will reflect on that I did these activities, I spent so much time on it. Have I then been able to improve my skills? Have I now been able to, develop these skills? And do I see an improvement on the activities that I've undertaken, and have they allowed me to improve my, academic writing skills or my English speaking skills, or in some cases, my referencing skills? You would basically look at doing your own review and say yes or no. Now, if you feel that you still have got work to do, then you basically change the timeline on the activity, and that would be reflected in what is called a review of your personal development plan. Now, when I look at the first task, it is asking us to do two parts. First part is asking us to look at essentially academic skills, and the second part is English. So for English, as I mentioned, you need to go on to the British Council English Core website, take that test, and that would do it in, that will put your results in black and white, and that would be simple enough to complete. Now, in the second part, we have to look at doing our SWOT analysis. So here in the SWOT analysis, use this particular template, which I have provided as a Word document. And this template would then allow you to go about identifying your strengths and weaknesses. And because we are doing it in the context of health and social care in particular, what I would suggest is use this Word document, which is also available on Moodle 1.1, labeled as 1.1. And what you do is you concentrate on your strengths and weaknesses. Obviously, it is asking you to do your SWOT, but because the task says strengths and weaknesses only, that is where what I would do is strengths and weaknesses. I would suggest that we go ahead and do our SWOT, but concentrate on strengths and weaknesses. And this is a template that you would need to complete. Now, after this, because when you understand that these are my weaknesses, if you say I have not enough knowledge of the health and social care sector, I might also say one of the other weaknesses that I want to improve my Harvard referencing skills. You might also say that I want to improve my academic writing skills. which is where you need some part of the topics, you write it in your own words, which is paraphrasing, and in some cases you use them as quotes and you bring them in your work from different places like books, articles, journals, and you want to be able to build arguments, you want to be able to put things across as advantages, disadvantages, and towards the end make a decision on why you're supporting, or maybe in that task, if it is asking why do you support, say, changes in health and social care as an example, you would be looking at making a conclusion. And that would mean that you need to look at maybe improving your academic skills. So using these weaknesses that you discover and you put them across, what you're going to do is then look at this SMART template and then fill this in to complete this task. So what you're going to do is, in this as an acronym SMART, you write your specific targets. So one of the targets is improving Harvard referencing skills. So I put this as a target that I want to look at improving my Harvard referencing skills. How are you going to measure it? That at the end of my training or at the end of the activities that I take, I should understand how to do referencing, both in terms of direct quotes, in terms of in-text referencing, and then how do I look at paraphrasing. And this would help you put activities in place, because these are the three specific areas that you want to improve in referencing. Then what are the activities you're going to put? You're going to put the activities here in the achievable section. Now, why are you going to say that after completing these activities, I think I will have sufficient knowledge to look at working on academic referencing using Harvard referencing system? You would put that as examples of how the output would be generated from those activities, and that would then allow you to say that, yes, I'm confident now to follow Harvard referencing style. And then you put a time frame in terms of how long would you be looking at doing these activities or undertaking these activities, and then towards the end of it you say that, yes, now I think I'm confident and I have mastered the skill of referencing using Harvard style referencing style system. If you have more than one weakness that you put down, the same template you can use again. And I put 3 templates, so not more than 3, I would suggest, are required and would be good to fill these 3 up. And this will complete your task 1.2. This template is also available on Moodle. And as you can see, it says task 1.2. Now, for those of us who are looking at achieving a merit grade, then in that case, what I have also given is a template which is primarily on developing a personal development plan. And this personal development plan template, as you can see, would allow you to, bring across things that you have put and discovered using your strengths and weaknesses by doing the SWOT analysis, and then identifying activities that you're going to do with the SMART targets, and they are going to be put up here in the development plan. The reason of making this plan is that at some stage, when you look at, undertaking certain activities, your aim is to look at completing them. And also there should be a document which should kind of, provide a summary of what is it that you're going to do, for how long you're going to do, what activities you're going to do, and what are the end results expected from those activities. So for those of you who are looking at developing your PDP for the first time, in short, personal development plan, I would suggest that this template has to be used. And this template is something which ATHE has provided in the assignment brief. So for those of you who have not seen the assignment brief, as you would see, this is a part of the assignment brief which ATHE has provided a template, and that's the same template that I've used and provided it in a Word document. But what I've also done is, in order for you to understand why PDP is done, how it is compiled, how it is reviewed, how do you monitor it, I've given you some sort of let's say background and understanding of why this is a useful document which is to be created for the purposes of assignment. So in page 1 and 2, I've given some guidance note, and then some of the key terminology that we look at while developing and writing our PDP. That means a plan that I'm going to personally put into place to be able to achieve and improve some of my weaknesses or threats or opportunities that I see by undertaking activities. And that is what is to be documented in a PDP. And that would help us cover task 1M1. Is that okay? Any questions on this so far? So in the presentation of the assignment discussion, I put the PDP, on the SWOT analysis, strengths and weaknesses on one of the slides. I put the SMART template on another slide so that you're able to look at it. And then the personal development plan in order to achieve merit as an activity has been put across as a different slide. Is that okay? So if you fill these three templates to meeting your personal requirements, carry out your SWOT, do the SMART targets, and then make a PDP, you have completed learning outcome 1 of the assignment brief. And the task 1, including pass and merit activities for task 1 set in the assignment brief. Is that clear? Is that understood?
Yes, sir.
So if I switch you over to the assignment just to show you, you would be able to see that if you do this particular part and develop a plan, so you have completed your task 1 of the assignment by filling these 3 templates. Now, let's go to task 2, in which it is asking us to do note taking. Now, when you are sitting in a class and when you're taking a lecture, like you're attending a Zoom session with me right now, which is a lecture that I'm doing online, what we would be doing at some stages, you would be making your own notes. You'll be writing down some notes in terms of tips, maybe writing down some of the things which I'm explaining in your own words. And in task 2, what we need to be able to do is address assessment criteria 3.1 and 3.2, which are learning outcome 3. And here, what I need to be able to show is that I'm able to take notes from a variety of sources, and I'm able to write down these notes by paraphrasing the information which is shown, and then summarize the information to a required standard in terms of making my notes. And that is done through the process of active listening and passive listening, and that process is essentially called note taking. Now, there is a template that I will share with you, which is available. This is the screenshot of the template that I put on the slide, but I'm going to switch you over to a Word document and show you the template. This template is also available on Moodle. And what you have to do is, I have looked at from the assignment brief, it says from a variety of sources. That is the task. It says variety of sources, as you can see. So what we need to be able to do is look at different forms of information. So what I've done is, from variety of sources, one form of information is graph. Second form of information is given through a table. And the third part of information is given through a flow chart. So what I've done, because it says variety, we can't use just one. We have to use a few. So I have taken 3 different forms of, sources from which we can derive information. Now, what we have to do is, in this template, I have looked at one of the charts, which is basically a chart taken from the Office of National Statistics website. And it basically shows the consumer price index and specifically related to consumer price inflation in terms of house prices. And this particular chart is available on this link, which is on the .gov Office of National Statistics .gov.uk website. Now, what you have to do is look at this chart. So when I say look at this chart, if I click on this link now, and what I'm going to do is share my whole screen. So when I look at this chart and I open this link, as you can see, this chart I have taken from this presentation slide, which was done as a briefing by the Office of National Statistics. Now, what I would need to do, if I show you the slide first, which is on page, here we go. This is on slide 28. Now, what I need to do is look at this slide and understand what this graph is actually telling me about. So in slide 29, And in slide 30, basically, there is an inference of this graph which is given. So when I look at this particular slide 29, what I would need to do at my end would be to look at reading this slide 29 and then write it in my own words. So what you're going to do is, assuming you were sitting in this press conference or the news briefing, which was being done by the Office of National Statistics, and they were taking you through what is the consumer price inflation, CPI, and how is it affecting the house prices in the UK, you would be essentially, as a press, as somebody sitting in as a journalist or maybe in the press conference, making some notes, which would then be published as an article in, say, a newspaper or in a magazine. So under that context or under that particular context, with that assumption in mind, you need to look at this slide 29 and summarize the information given in slide 29 in your own words. And you would write this here in this Word document. So I'm going to be looking at summarizing and paraphrasing in our own words what the graph is describing. As I mentioned, it's on slide 28. And what you would do is write about 30 words to 50 words explaining what does the graph and the information in this slide show. And that would show that you have been able to take key points of information from a variety of sources by essentially one of the source that we are talking by active listening skills. Is that okay? And then,
Yes, sir.
Okay, and in the second one, again, I have given the source, which is from this website. And here it talks about how, the COVID virus is affecting, individuals in various age groups. So when I click on this link, what it will show me is this particular table, as you can see, which I've taken here. And this particular table is then allowing me, and there is some inferences which are given here about the table. So you will read this and then again in your own words, summarized in 20 to 30 words, what the table is talking about or giving us information about. And that would cover your task for note taking. And this is a flowchart again, which basically explains how the COVID response was being put together and what effect it is having on the mental health of patients. So again, you're looking at going through this flowchart and writing in 20 to 30 words, what is the inference that you think is the information showing, and that would complete this task of note taking. And this would help achieve task 2, 3.1 and 3.2. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. I have a question before we proceed.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to double check. So the same graphs and the information you've provided right now, the 3 tasks that we need to paraphrase, we can go ahead and use the same diagrams, and basically we will just paraphrase what we understand, right?
That is correct.
Or we can use something else, or we just go with what you've provided.
No, you can go with what if you have something and you want to do it in your context, definitely go with that. But just generally speaking, that if you want to use the templates that are provided, can be used, and they can be then used and submitted for the purposes of doing and completing this task. But if you have your own way of looking at it, that means you can pick out something from, say, a book, a paragraph, or a new website as an article, and you would want to do that paraphrasing and show this particular task, that is absolutely fine as well. Not a problem.
Okay, this is what I wanted to double check. Thank you.
No worries. Now, in the next part of the assignment, we are being asked to carry out a research project, and that would cover so many of the assessment criteria given in the assignment brief. Now here, what I would suggest is I have also shared again a template here, which is called the task 3. And this is a research proposal primarily, which I've shared with you as a template. Now, I'm going to show you on the screen again, and this would help you complete task 3 given in the assignment brief. Now, there are lots of, now here the advantage is the main point of the task that it is being asked to do in the assignment brief is, it is saying as a part of your course, you will need to research information using both primary and secondary methods, and then write up or present your findings. For example, in your assignment of health and social care sector, you need to research about maybe health and social care sector and the current legislation. Using that as an example for the academic research, you need to write a plan. You need to outline the process of your research. You need to create a first draft and then produce the final draft in a professional standard. So in order to put this task and make it easier for everyone, what I've suggested is use this research proposal. So individual bullet points, again, sharing you the whole of the screen because I want to put this into context. As you can see, these are the points which we have to address, and these are the assessment criteria that we have to address for doing this task, which is task 3. So what I've done is I've converted each of these bullet points and included that into this particular research proposal. So the first bullet point talks about outline your research plan, which is here. So what we do is we discuss a title for your research project, and then we put some objectives down of what your research is going to be about. Now, in order for you to look at picking up good research topics, these are 2 websites which are provided where you can go and actually shortlist a suitable research project which has already been published by, I would say, let's say the Healthcare Foundation in this case. And the second, topic that I've suggested that you could look at would be coming in to you from the NHS website. And this NHS website would essentially provide lots of topics on which research have been done. And these topics would allow you to essentially look at shortlisting one report that you feel is of your area of interest. And using that report, you would be able to write up your research, draft it in the form of this particular task proposal. So what I'm saying is effectively, if I look at, say, one report, drugs-related deaths happening in Scotland, if I look at this one particular report, what I want to do is download this report first. And as you can see, the report gives me all the things which are required to be covered in my research summary report. So first things first, what I need to do is look at the objectives and the title of the research. The first thing that I would look at is my title of the research is why are drug-related deaths amongst women increasing in Scotland? That becomes my title of the research. Now, what is the background and why am I looking at doing this research is actually coming in, from the abstract or the executive summary. And that is where I'm looking at putting down the objectives and the purpose of the research. If I go further, it talks about what is the specific focus. So in the specific focus, it is also giving us that there are issues around the availability of drugs, easy availability of drugs, and that is what is looking at increasing the uptake of women or women taking up drugs in Scotland. So it will allow you to filter all the information into this proposal from a relevant research report that you pick out. Now, there are hundreds of reports. You can choose a topic of your own interest as well, but just to make the task easier and make it more focused so that you are able to complete the unit and the assignment in a suitable amount of time, that is where I've suggested that you look at these 1 or 2 sites. One is the NHS site, which is having an archive of a lot of research projects, and the other is the Healthcare Foundation, wherein a lot of research reports have been organized in a particular topic-wise, whichever topic you find. So if I look at, say, for example, patient safety as an area which is of interest, I pick out one particular report from this, and then when I go into the details of the report, it will help me fill and populate and complete the task 3 completely by addressing all the points which are required to be done in this report. So task 3 is going to ask you to fill this table, which is basically hitting all the bullet points which are asked for in the assignment brief here. Now, once we have done this, we move to the merit and extension activities, in which it is asking you to produce a final draft of your research report. And they are going to be hitting these criteria. Now, here what I would do is I would go in and write up a report in about 250, I would say between 300 to 500 words. depending on if you're hitting the criteria of the merit activities and the distinction activities. So what I would do is I would then need to write up my report in a professional standard and tailor it to these 5 headings. When you look at a research report, essentially, it always will have things like aims and objectives, rationale of research, literature review, what are the existing data that you're going to review. It'll talk about research methodology. It'll also have what are the ethical considerations, and towards the end, what you will have to write down the sources that you've used to compile this research report. And that would be termed as references. Now, if you write this in about, I would say 300 to 500 words, that would help meet your task 3 in full on the assignment. And that would cover all the parts of your merit and distinction. Now, for distinction, there is a presentation of your research with me or your tutor. So what you're going to do is basically discuss, and we will do a presentation using the Zoom session, wherein you're going to be presenting the summary of your report. I'm going to ask you some questions, which is going to be basis what you're presenting and compiled. And once you are able to answer these questions, this is going to be a small recorded session of 5 to 10 minutes. And that would help say that you've answered the Q&A on your report, you presented the report professionally, you have a good understanding of your research project and the topic that you research, and that would allow you to achieve distinction. So for the task 3, we are producing a research proposal. After the research proposal has been filled in the tables, you are going to write up a mini summary of your project in about 300 to say 500 words. The total word count has to be 300 to 500 words. And once you do that, to achieve your distinction, you are going to then do a oral or a viva, that we say viva voce. That means you have to go and do a question answer session with your tutor and then present the project and the summary of it, and then answer a few questions related to your report, which will help you achieve distinction. Is that okay? Any questions on this? So this particular template of the research proposal is also available, on Moodle under your course. And it is important for you to look at this, because when you look at, obviously you can compile your own research project, not a problem, but as long as you keep to these headings, that would be absolutely fine, and would be useful for you to achieve task 3 and comprehensively. And that would cover both, not just your past tasks, but it will also cover your merit and distinction criteria tasks as far as this part of the assignment is concerned. Now, if I switch you over to next task. Yeah, any questions? Sorry, you were saying something. Yes. Any questions? Yeah, go on.
I want to ask, the first research assignment that we did with Sadia, is the tax 3 and this tax 3 for academic one, are they the same?
Yes, they are the same. Okay. So what you need to do is, I will text you, if you've already submitted something to Shazia or already done this, then that is fine. Just make sure you send a copy of this and we'll give you a feedback, because I have some learners who are basically filling the research proposal. They're sending it to me. They're taking an approval on the research project. Sometimes if I find the topic is too big or too broad, then what will happen is I'm asking you to narrow it down, and that is to help you to achieve and do a topic for research within the context of level 3, because you're not doing a topic for the bachelor's degree or a master's degree. So it has to be a topic which has to be very specific and very filtered. I'm asking you to look at maybe taking 1 or 2 objectives rather than 3 or 4, and then making sure that the topic is something that you can write up your research report on, rather than looking at it being done from a very macro point of view or a generic point of view. So it'll be best if you, basically send me a copy of your research proposal topic, and this is something on which I can feedback. And once the feedback is provided, you can go ahead and summarize and complete your report, which is required to be able to achieve this task. Is that okay?
Yeah, Fine.
Okay, so if you want to send it, I will send this to the learner.
Learnerwork at
the
ukversity.co.uk. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, okay.
So that, go on.
Okay, and there's some assignments that I've already submitted. I haven't got any feedback regarding that. Maybe I need to put more effort, or maybe I did well. I don't know anything about it, and no feedback.
So in your case, Bushra, I have received 1 or 2 assignments, and I think they have been marked. You would have got an email back already. So you have submitted what is the communication skills assignment? Yes. And that was submitted on the 17th of February. So that is currently in marking. And prior to that, you had submitted your PCA assignment, which is your person-centered approach. And on the person-centered approach assignment, you have received a merit grade. And I think just digressing from here, on your, so these are the 2 that we've received so far.
Yes.
Is that okay? So
Okay,
I will re-forward these feedback to you shortly.
Sir, I want to tell you something, please.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, go on.
Sir, I have already submitted 2 assignments. One of such proposal and second one the PDP. These 2 assignments.
That is correct. So you had sent your research proposal on the 2nd of March. That is going to be responded today, and then the PDP was submitted yesterday. So that will also be responded to you by today or by tomorrow. So both have been received.
Oh, okay. I do not need send you again.
No, you don't need to send me again. You followed the research proposal part of it, clearly, and I've got that template. So we will, feed that feedback back to you by, by tomorrow or latest by Monday on both of them, including your PDP task.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. Okay, let's go to the last task, which is primarily looking at task 4 of the assignment. Now here, we have to basically reflect on our PDP, the initial PDP that we had developed in the first task. What we need to do is do a bit of reflection on this. So what I would suggest is, in this case, we have to look at reviewing the original personal development plan that we have developed. And this would be done in 2 ways. Now, when you look at the personal development plan that we have got a template of in the assignment brief, this is the part that we need to fill in the first part. When you do it for learning outcome 1, and in learning outcome 1, specifically task 1M1. And then in the, part 4 of your task, you have to actually do the second part, which is to review, because it says in the assignment, you are looking at reflecting on your progress. So reflecting on the progress, this part has to be filled in. That means if I look at going back to the example of 1M1, and if I bring that up on the screen as a template, what you're going to see is the template which has been given by ATHE in their assignment brief. We are going to use that, and the same template that we're going to use is essentially going to be, the template that we have to complete for the purposes of review. This is the first part that you fill for 1M1, which is to say, what are my development objectives, which are coming as weaknesses that you're putting up here? What are the priority? If you want to assign a priority, that it is priority 1 to 5, 3 is neutral, 4 and 5 are important, 1 and 2 are, not that important. And what are the activities that you're going to undertake is what you mention here. And then what timeline you're going to achieve these activities by is going to be put up here. So if I put it this way, that this part is something that is the 1M1 of your assignment, essentially. So if I just reorganize this in a second, just to look at, this would be the bits that we cover as far as the task, 1 is concerned, 1M1 is concerned. So this part you fill as the first part, which is your personal development plan. Now, because in the task 4, it is asking you to review. So what I'm going to look at is what did I take in terms of activities. And if I feel that I have not been able to achieve what I set out to do, then I put an actual date or a review date to say I'm going to extend this by so much time frame, and that is where I will review it again to see whether I've mastered this particular task, or if I've been able to achieve this particular skill, and that would allow you to review your progress. So in a way, what we have to do is basically put in a review plan to what was initially discussed, and then if this was not completed, or if we feel that this is something that we have not been able to achieve, then what we do is we put further activities down for improvement of that particular weakness, and then put a new date down on which we will further review that whether I've been able to achieve that activity or not. A simple bit would be, if I give you an example that, I want to learn, say, for example, driving. Just a simple example, digressing from, relating it to health and social care sector. But, what I want to do is I want to achieve my, say, theory and practical test for driving. Now, this is my weakness because I'm currently not able to drive. I have to take bus or tram to travel to my place of work. So what I would want to do is I want to achieve and complete my theory test and a practical test, and I want to achieve that. Now, what is the priority for me? It is the topmost priority because I spend a lot of time in going in bus or tram, and if I have my own car or I can go to my own place of work, then obviously it will save me time. Now, what are the activities that I'm going to take? I'm going to undertake activities like number 1, take driving lessons, right? Number 2, read up on the highway code to prepare for the theory test. Then I am going to practice using the .gov DVD guide for theory test. Then number 4, I'm going to take multiple choice question tests on website to revise my knowledge on the highway code. So what I've done is I put down a number of activities which will help me achieve the driving test. Now, what I would do is put a timeline. So if I start my driving lessons today, which is 11th of March, I'm going to take how many lessons? So each lesson, say 2 lessons a week. If I decide to take, then I would look at taking 20 lessons. And that would mean if I'm taking 2, that means 10 weeks would be required. So how do I put 10 weeks? So today, from now on, I'm going to look at putting 10 weeks as a timeline. This is just for my understanding as a calculation. But if I look at 10 weeks from now, that means I would put this as 30th May 2023. That is where I will be taking driving lessons from a professional instructor to take practical lessons to learn how to drive. Then these are things on which I will put a timeline that I will be looking at taking practice tests. And I say, okay, 30th April. And all these things and multiple choice questions, again, I'm taking it, I'll put a timeline of, say, 30th March. So what you're doing is you're putting a timeline, and then this is a plan that I'm developing that I'm going to do. You might want to break this down into a theoretical plan and a practical plan. So I might take driving lessons, which is 1, and then I would say I would also take theory lessons, and that would be my, say, for example, priority also 5, and this is taking or say revising for theory test. And then put these activities that you have got on this side here. And then define a timeline for these activities that you're looking at doing. And that would be, completing some part of it as far as what I want to achieve. Now, what I would do is when the date of 30th March passes, I would see, am I hitting the target on, completing, and, am I confident on passing the theory test? Because when I book my theory test, if I fail, I will have to reset, pay for it again, and then again prepare and do the test. So what I would do is, here I would look at whether I would need, any additional help or resources to be able to complete this. So I would say book a theory test at the Pearson Test Center. And what I would do is I would take this theory test on, say, 3rd of April, if I get the booking, and see what my result is. Now, if I'm not able to achieve, then I'll have to go back to again revising my theory. So here is where you would put the review of your PDP that you are revising. Now, if you have achieved it, so you can say as a result, here I would say I have achieved my theory test and now preparing for practical test, which I will take after completing the 20 sessions. And that would help you, complete the review of your PDP as far as this task is concerned. Is that understood?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you could use this template, which is also available on Moodle, to complete task 4 of your assignment. And that would help achieve both the pass, the merit, and the distinction. So in this case, there are only 2 criteria, 6.1 and 6.2. And when I look at that, if I do the review of, my English skills, my referencing skills, and as an example, my note-taking skills or research skills, these are the 4 activities that you need to develop your PDP around. So don't go about maybe looking at a lot of broad activities, although you can do that, but keep it succinct and keep it focused. This is the example which ATHE is given that you need to look at reviewing your PDP on. And as long as you fill this template, you should be able to complete this particular task and hit both the criteria. Now, for the submission of assignment, I would suggest a date of, 31st March, at the very latest, to be able to, complete this particular assignment and submit. And as you can see, for doing this assignment, apart from just the learning outcome 3, wherein you have to look at part 2 to achieve merit and distinction, wherein you have to write the research project, most of the assignment can be actually done by using the templates that are being provided, should you wish to do so, and that they are all going to be individual documents that you submit, and you can then achieve this unit comprehensively. Is that okay?
Yes, sir, but
Okay.
if we need more time, it's for the assignment, we can.
You can take more time. That is not a problem. You can take more time.
Okay, sir.
That is not a problem. But I would suggest that, if you follow the focused approach that I've explained to you today on the assignment discussion session, that should allow you to achieve, this unit. And all you are looking at doing is maybe spending an hour or 2, between now and maybe next week, another hour or 2 next week, and completing the templates. I think the bit that you will need time on is a week or so to read up on the research report that you download, and then pick out the extracts from that report and then write it in your own words, in about 300 to 500 words, to complete the merit and distinction part of the assignment brief, task 3, and that would take time. Rest of it should be, I would say, easy enough to achieve, because most of it is templated.
Okay,
Good stuff. So the copy of this session is available on YouTube. All these handouts are available on your respective Moodle, and I would also drop them into the WhatsApp group right now so that you have these templates, rather than going back and forth to find and ask where do I assess these or where do I get these. I'm going to drop them here as well so that you have it, and then you are able to use these to be able to essentially complete your let's say your for your assignment. Okay. Any questions, anything in terms of any queries that you have, or you think of anything, you can get in touch with me through the email at learnerwork@UK and I'll come back to you on this pretty much straight away. Okay. Thanks very much for attending. I'll catch up with you next week, because you'll be receiving a schedule for the next unit from Mr. Marvis, and that will come to you on Monday/Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye for now. Bye.